On June 16th, in the year of 1960, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho became the first American motion picture to showcase a flushing toilet on film. Not only was this relatively simple shot groundbreaking for its time, but it brought into question what can and cannot be shown on film. On October 15th, in the year 2000, America's favorite flushing toilet, commonly known as Larry David, released Curb Your Enthusiasm, coincidentally, also about a mentally disturbed man who talks to himself constantly, and may or may not want to kill women. Maybe. Now, the reason for this video's existence started out like any other day. I was mindlessly scrolling through YouTube looking for new products to consume, like the good piggy I am, until I stumbled upon this video, the Curb Your Enthusiasm finale scene. And, as a consumer, like I said, I consumed product like I was told to. And I liked it. It was funny, but then I recognized something good. This had potential to be a long-form essay. But not just any other essay, a theological essay. I saw the religious potential in this scene, something so deeply spiritual that it couldn't just be a coincidence. And if it was a damn good one to exploit. And if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, this is based on the YouTuber Antfall's video on the Sopranos in Hell. And by the way, go follow his account, give him some love. Without him, this video would not exist as it is today. But anyways, I said anyways. Thanks. What I'm trying to say is that what really struck me about this scene was the airplane. Something about it just seemed off. Curb Your Enthusiasm always prided itself as a day in the life type series. It was very grounded, very gritty, just felt very real, even to its dying breath. However, this scene just did not fit that mold. It was clean, it was sterile, very sleek, very bright. I mean, you might blame it on the fact of, restrictions and a lower budget, but I don't really feel that. I think they could have gotten an airplane set to look better than ever. They must be intentional, because just something about it. It seems more of a real, tangible set contextually and more of a metaphorical one. And by metaphorical, I mean Larry David is dead. In the series, he's belly up, out to greener pastures, in the Elysian fields. He's kaput. Because it's not meant to represent a plane, as we know it. It's supposed to represent a metaphysical concept, the concept of moving on. Larry is in purgatory, and he's trying to get to the afterlife. But as we see, he does not want to leave without a fight. A fight he did by himself. A fight that could have been avoided.
And avoided quite easily, may I add.
A really stupid fight he did not need to do, but he did anyways, because he can. Because it's funny. Because funny is funny. But what does that mean for Larry as a character? I mean, if he's dead now, then what was the point of the earlier scene? Well, to be completely honest, I think that personally he was alive during the earlier scene, but metaphorically he was dead. Now he is metaphorically alive in the spiritual realm, but now physically dead, if you get my drift. In the prison scene, it represented hell. It was a foretold hell, in Seinfeld, the finale scene, done over again. Like Isaiah to Christ and vice versa, typology, whatever. And in this hell, he is forced to repeat himself again and again. He literally repeats the first scene of Curb Your Enthusiasm as he repeats the ending of Seinfeld. Now, if we're going off of Antfall's interpretation of the Sopranos' interpretation of the concept of hell, then it can be described as the worst moment of your life, repeated over and over again, continually, with very minimal changes, depending on very minute aspects that don't really alter the events whatsoever. Just the worst parts of your life, just on display, continually and endlessly repeating without any sense of growth or development. And what does Larry David do as a job, as a comedian? He does exactly that. He repeats all the uncomfortable, just annoying moments that he has to experience in his own mundane life and broadcast it to the masses, retelling the exact same story, the exact same sufferings, the exact same trials that lead up to absolutely nothing over and over again ad infinitum. Larry David is technically making hell his job, but in the airplane scene, he is making his heaven hell, or at least his purgatory hell, his transitionary period. And what I'm trying to say is that he's making his own hell for himself, even when he is going to heaven. Which is really funny because right before, he is harrowed out of the metaphysical, metaphorical hell by his own creation. You could say his son, that being Jerry Seinfeld, the character. Jerry Seinfeld, of all people. And you know who he represents, in my opinion? Another famous J-man who likes to talk about modern sin and suffering. Jesus Christ. Yes, but I don't mean it like the real guy, 1638 and whatever. But I mean in the context of the series, he is the GodMan. And by the GodMan, I mean he is both real outside the reality of Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld, the series. But he is both a fictional character in both of those worlds. He is both real in our world, real in Seinfeld, and real in Curb Your Enthusiasm. They're both independent characters, people. The real Jerry Seinfeld is not a character, he's a living guy. There's 3 different identities that share the same name, the same person. 3 in 1. Literally Trinitarian. And, Larry David is a creator in both Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. So you could say that he is the son of the metaphysical, the concept of Jerry Seinfeld. You could argue that the Jerry Seinfeld we see in the finale scene is not Jerry Seinfeld, the Curb Your Enthusiasm character who played Jerry Seinfeld in the series. But rather, all the concept of Jerry. Just everything we know about Jerry Seinfeld, both as a character who plays himself as a character, the guy who plays himself as a character, and the guy who plays himself playing a character. Just all of that combined. All that Jerry, all that Seinfeld. And you could say the same thing exactly for the recurring cast on the airplane. And like the son of the creator, Jesus heralded sinners out of hell. Now, this is kind of gnostic here, but I'm not trying to teach you about the Bible. What do I look like? You priest? Go to church. But metaphysically speaking, in this theological concept, it's very interesting. Which is a bit of a double whammy since, because Terry Danson is here. And Terry Danson was a very important character on the show The Good Place. Which, coincidentally, to the point I'm getting apart, is about a heavenly place that turns out to be a hell because it forces sinners to interact and talk with each other for the rest of eternity. And I just found it really funny how that kind of describes what I'm saying here, except it's all Larry's fault. He chose to start the argument. He chose to make it a big problem. You can even argue that the hell as a prison, or the prison as hell metaphor, is confirmed because he is told, go back to prison, Jerry. And that to me just basically go to hell. He's being told to go back to hell because no one wants him in heaven because he's causing the arguments. And who can really blame them, really, in the end of the day? And that just... Now that brings up the real, true ethical question. Does Larry really want to go to heaven? Because in prison, he was perfectly fine doing the exact same skit as he was doing in the beginning of the series, again and again and again. He was perfectly happy. It did not seem struggling or suffering at all. He was happy when Jerry freed him from hell, heralded him. But he wasn't sad or depressed before. In fact, he seemed like he was thriving. He was in his zone. Versus the heaven scene, the airplane, where he is on the transition to see the light. The lady opens up the light for him. And that causes him to go into a spiraling pit of anger and rage. Now, I wanted to bring up the light because I feel that is literally a metaphor for a divine light shining on him. The light shining on Larry to tell him to get rid of all that worldly stuff, to stop with your books and your television, your movies, and your whining and complaining, and to move on. But Larry does not want to move on. He just wants to read his books and complain. He wants his worldly attachments in the story. And that's something that I found really impactful, because it showcases how he is willing to sacrifice the divine light, to sacrifice his unity with it, just because he wants to do what he wants to do. Not even something beautiful or complex. He's not rebelling against heaven. He's not creating his own kingdom. He just wants to do stupid, minor, boring stuff. And he feels he's entitled to do it whenever he wants, when he wants, even when that divine light is shining upon him. Now, even though the character of Larry in Curb Your Enthusiasm is just a hyper-real exaggeration of the real Larry David, as seen through his own eyes and the eyes of the writers, I think it's a good metaphor for the good chunk of us and just how we live our lives. We can literally be on our ways to heaven with the light shining upon us, and yet we just complain because we like complaining. Because what else is there to do but complain? I mean, what else is there besides complaining? Is there anything else? Is there? By the way, give me money.